You're ready?
Oh, hold on. I got, no.
Oh. Okay, we will now call our October 24th, 2022 Board of Trustees regular board meeting to order. Entertain a motion for the adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Darby. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Hedrick. Are there any questions? Hearing none, then we ask that you please cast your vote. Ms. Coates, are you voting electronic or by voice?
By voice, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I let the record reflect Dr. Frazier is not present, and Ms. Coakley, I believe, is not. All right, please make sure your vote is reflected accordingly. Item 1C is approval of minutes. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Ms. Darby. Is there a second?
Second,
Second by Ms. Coates. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote. Ms. Coates, how do you vote?
yes.
Thank you. All right, please make sure your your vote is reflected. Entertain a moment for a moment of silence. Yes, you should please stand for a pledge of allegiance as Ms. Hedrick will lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, for all.
Item 2A is in recognition of National Principals Month. I don't know, am I doing it or are you doing it with me? Okay, all right. We have our principals on Zoom with us. Is there any principal present in the audience? All right. So we are excited to begin this meeting by recognizing our outstanding principals in honor of National Principals Month in the month of October. Thank you all for joining us today via Zoom. We know you're all very busy supporting our students and families and are thankful for your taking the time to join us this afternoon. Each and every day, these educators pour their hearts and minds into our children across the country, across the county, supporting them, teaching them, leading them, encouraging them, and cheering them on as they grow and work hard to achieve all of their hopes and their dreams. The job of an educator is a selfless one. It is one which requires endless dedication, strength, agility, flexibility, and resilience as one gives their all in support of helping each and every child that grace their doors be the best they can be and know that only the sky is the limit. Your incredible leadership, I must say, is essential to every aspect of our mission and is invaluable to the lives of the children you serve each and every day. Thank you for all that you do, for going above and beyond, and for your love of the profession and for our children. As we recognize you today, this month, but every day, just not only in October, because you are valuable every day that you step foot into our buildings, your planning, your preparations that you do over the summer, you operate 12 months, 365. And we just want to say on behalf of the Board of Trustees, happy National Principals Month and President, right? Thank you so much for all that you do, and so to the fact that we're going to stand in honor of you today to recognize all that you do for our students. Again, to our principals, thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing great things continuously coming out of our schools as we advance into the school year. At this time now, we entertain a motion to go into executive session. Moved by Ms. Darby, second by Ms. Green. All in favor, just so I know by saying aye. Are there any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you so kindly. We will now convene to executive session. Board members, do you want to go in the back or you want to do that? What do you want to do? Go in the back?
No, I always look down here,
Okay.
but that's kind of.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to convene in the boardroom and we'll just come back out. You ready? Okay. We'll now reconvene back into open session. Item 6A, personnel matter. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the forwarding of a formal complaint to the South Carolina Department of Education related to the attached contract teacher. Second.
Moved by Ms. Darby, second by Ms. Green. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote. Ms. Coates, how do you vote? Ms. Coates?
Okay.
Can you hear me, Ms. Coates? You're on mute. You voted?
Eric, I'm able to vote, electronically. If I'm not, I'll let you know. But right now it seems to be, I'm doing it.
All right, sounds great. Thank you. All right, make sure your vote is casted correctly, recorded correctly. Item 6B, D1 contractual matter.
I move to approve the extension of the facility lease agreement of the Lincoln campus to Lincoln Regional Center with no additional extension. Second.
Moved by Ms. Darby, second by Ms. Green. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote. Okay, that motion passes. Item 6C is the D4, I'm sorry. D4 contractual matter. Is there a motion?
I move to direct staff to negotiate a real estate purchase contract not to exceed staff's recommendation on purchase price. Second.
Moved by Ms. Darby, second by Ms. Green. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote. Okay, that motion passes. Item 6D, D4 contractual matter. Is there a motion?
Move to direct staff to negotiate a real estate purchase contract not to exceed staff's recommendation on purchase price.
Moved by Ms. Darby, second by Ms. Green. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote. Oops. Yeah, no votes was casted. We'll try that again. Okay, that item passes. Item 6E is the home school application. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the homeschool application.
Moved by Ms. Darby, second by Ms. Green. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote. Hey, that item passes. Item 6F is student placement appeal. Is there a motion?
I move to have the Department of School Support put in quotes, do not enroll, end quote, in the student's record, and student will be subject to the discipline appeal process should they try to re-enroll. Second.
Okay, I know that was moved by Ms. Darby, second by Ms. Green. Julie, do you have all of that?
What you have is fine, Julie.
While we're getting the motion recorded, is there any questions in reference to item 6F? All right. Okay, we ask that you please cast your vote. Okay, that item passes. Item 6G, student placement appeal. Is there a motion?
I'd like to have the same motion, but basically to move to have the Department of School Support put do not enroll in the student record. And the student would be subject to the discipline appeal process should they try to re-enroll. Second.
Moved by Ms. Darby, second by Ms. Green. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote. Is open? Okay. Okay, that item passes. 6H, student placement appeal. Is there a motion?
I move to have the student placed in a temporary virtual placement for 45 days. And if the student is unsuccessful, they are automatically assigned to Daniel Jenkins Academy. Second.
Motion made by Ms. Darby, second by Ms. Green. Is there any questions? Dr. French?
May I ask that on the virtual option, it be 45 days or until completion of program? As well, 45 days is if you get everything done in the program, generally.
That's in addition to the motion.
Well, can we get some clarification? Can you come up, can Ms. Coakley Dr. Coakley come up to the podium? Because I think for high school.
So we can keep it at the 45 days completion. And if the student's not successful, that's where that Daniel Jenkins Academy placement will need to come in at. Because in 45 days, we would expect a completion of that program if the student was at Turner Point.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
So
Thank
the
you.
current motion, Dr. Coakley, covers that?
Absolutely. Your second clause was if the student's not successful, the student would automatically be assigned to Daniel Jenkins Academy.
Got it. All right. Any further questions? All right, hearing none. Well, ask that you please cast your vote. Okay, that item passes. Item 6I, student placement appeal.
I move to uphold the constituent board decision. Second.
Moved by Ms. Darby, second by Ms. Green. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote. Ms. Green? Two more. We got two more meetings to go. All right, that item passes. Next is public comments. Ms. Waters?
Thank you, Reverend Mack. We do have 3 in-person public comments. The first is Latish Ashworth. All right. The second is Ms. Sherry Suttles. You can take the podium in the middle.
Thank you. My name is Sherry Ann Suttles. I'm the founding president of Gullah Geechee Group Incorporated. I'm here to invite you to attend, participate, and promote November 7th, 2022. It happens to be the Monday before election, but for us, it happens to be the launch of a program that we've been working on for about 6 months. And we're starting it in that morning, Mary Ford Early Learning Center with the little kindergarten age children. And in the afternoon at Septima P. Clark Academy. We're hoping to be at Daniel Jenkins Academy as well. Those of you know Reverend Daniel Joseph Jenkins created in 1891 an orphanage of troubled children. And the orphanage band went on to be worldwide. We are honoring on that day Mrs. Joanna Martin Carrington. She has held that position, executive director, for 14 years, and she's still on the board as the president emeritus. She literally recruited me from Florida, where I had retreated from being here at the beginning, to initiate what we call Bridge the Gap. And that gap is students academic level down here and their prison level up there. We're bridging it by reaching out to our roots, America and Africa, to including agricultural and arts, music, which Reverend Jenkins did so many years ago for so many children. This is an international program. This start is not just Charleston. I'm wearing a dress from Sierra Leone, where I went this past spring again. I talked to some of those folks this morning. We're trying to bring them here for this particular event. After the school time is over, that's just for the children and the teachers. We're inviting the public. I've handed out some flyers. From 1 to 6, we will have artisans, the Geechee artisans, and other speakers in music. What else? In my 2 minutes, I will close if you have any questions with thanking, first of all, Miss Vanessa for helping me come out here today. And then to Mr. Donald Kennedy. I had a chance to meet with him with a Howard Coleman, but I decided to sleep overnight, I think that day at the Slave Dwelling Project, the day that he met with you. But we thank you for entertaining the thought of taking this process and this program throughout the school system. This is just the start. And I'm sorry Dr. Helen Frazier's not there because I have to thank her too. I've never met the lady, but she's been very helpful advising us through Mrs. Carrington. So that's what I'm here for. I want to give a basket to somebody. I thought it would go to the chairperson of the board, but maybe it's to Kennedy. In other words, this is up to Vanessa to decide. Thank you, and we'll see you on the 7th, hopefully. Whoops.
Thank you. The next in-person comment we have is Mr. David Rivera.
Hello.
Hello.
How you guys doing? So I'm Detective Rivera. I work with the North Charleston Police Department. Today, I'm just going to give you guys a very basic overview of kind of the violence that we've been seeing throughout the year and how it's affecting our juveniles. A little bit of background on myself. I've been working gangs since 2017. I work federal and state gang investigations. During these investigations, we like to see the demographic, kind of what is involving these gang-related violence and these crimes that are being committed throughout our county. Unfortunately, in recent memory, within the last year, we're seeing an uptick in gang-related violence within the juvenile school districts, so within Charleston County school districts. And what we're seeing is we've been reached out to by principals in the area, teachers, and everyone's trying to figure out a way to combat these gang-related crimes. And when I say gang-related crimes, we actually have it through law that says what a gang-related crime is, and that's drug dealing, burglaries, weapons violations, any type of narcotics violation. That's what I mean when I say gang-related crimes. And our juveniles are starting at the age of as early as 14 years old on to usually around 26, where it starts getting to that point. This is something that we can combat. This is something new to the state of South Carolina. This wouldn't be new to Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, but in Charleston County, this is new to us. So this is stuff that we are combating. We do need help with the school district. We need to have education to our teachers, our principals, and people who are working with the youth, and trying to give you guys tools to identify and pull these juveniles out of the life before it turns bad. So the goal is to try to get them out of the, which is the trend of being a gang member, and get them out before it's too late. And unfortunately, over the last year, we're in an uprise of murders within North Charleston and Charleston County. And majority of these, I would say even 70–80% are gang related. So if you have any questions within this is a very sophisticated concept. It's a lot that goes into gangs. It's not just a cut and dry, type of situation. But if you are interested, we can reach out to North Charleston, and we could put you in the right, areas to figure out what's necessary for you specifically.
Thank you, Mr. Rivera. We typically don't ask questions, but Reverend Mack is allowing us to acknowledge Ms. Herder, who has a question for you.
Hi.
Hello.
What are you actually proposing to go in schools with a specific curriculum?
So I'm not proposing much. The biggest thing is education. So I feel like we have a lot on the law enforcement side that we cannot provide by law when it comes to individuals' names, actual gangs, things of that nature. But what we can do is try to provide you information on how to identify someone who's what we consider high risk for being a gang member. And usually that's around 12 years old to 16, where you have that short window where you could start identifying different things that they're wearing, graffiti within the walls of the schools. And we could, intervene, on your behalf, just to give you the guidance of, hey, this is a guy that we consider a high risk individual. This is someone that, was involved in a gang related crime. And the biggest thing for us is to provide the intelligence to you guys, because there's things that are going on in the streets that you don't know about. So teachers come to school, principals come to school. You don't know what happened, at 11 p.m. within a neighborhood that your juveniles are from. And those are different things that we want to educate you on. So it's not something that, we're withholding. It's something that we want to provide. And then whatever assistance you guys need, whether it's education, classes on gangs, how gangs are started, the psychology of a gang member, and specifically a juvenile gang member, those are things that we're well versed in. This is our job, and this is kind of what we do.
So you just need access.
Just whatever you guys need.
Okay.
This is more of like whatever you guys need, we could provide, and then we could go from there as far as curriculum or things that are going. Because again, this is a new concept. Gangs is new, not historically, but to South Carolina, Charleston County, this is a newer revival of violence that we're dealing with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Online submitted public comments were all around the Carolina Park matter, which we're not actually taking up today. Thank you.
We are.
So, yeah.
Well, just not,
The funding.
yeah,
Okay.
the board members can read the.
Okay, all
comment.
right. So I just want to add in, which is very important. Mr. Reichenbach gave a very extensive security update some few meetings ago about measures, security measures that needs to be included or suggested within our schools. You've heard about the uptake in gang-related issues within our schools that are on the horizon. We just learned, or many of you just learned today, just on CNN, where a shooting occurred at the high school where a teacher and a student died today from gun-related activities. So, it's just, and we've heard, the uptake in guns that have been found within our schools just this school year alone. And they are entering into our buildings. we have not made a decision yet on the security measures that has been presented to us, and it's not on the agenda for a debate or a discussion tonight. But however, I honestly feel that as a board that we need to look at these security measures and take some type of action very, very soon so that we can get the much needed security within our schools. I do know that we talked about the SROs, and I believe we have that covered. But however, we need to go a little bit further in securing the measures that's needed. I know we have explored scanners, detectors there in our schools, trying to detect some of those items before entering into the building. We talked about locks on the doors. We talked about bulletproof doors. We talked about radio systems. So there are a number of things that we have talked about, but yet we have not executed any of those security measures. We just had them on paper. So I'm asking the board to really, really think about how do we move the next step in making sure that we try to secure our schools as much as possible before we have to encounter any measures that we do not want to have happen in any of our schools. So I'm asking the board to, at our next meeting, to make sure that we take some type of action in security measures and that we secure our schools as much as we possibly can without furthering this delay.
Matt.
Yes.
I think, and if I'm not misspeaking, that staff is looking into
Mhm.
based on the recommendations, but I think what we did was they were to go back and look at cost and talk about the funding
Mhm.
and come back to us.
Yeah.
So that was my understanding of where we were.
Right.
Is that right? Okay.
So, and that is great. But what I'm asking the board to
Understand.
is to really make a commitment to executing some movement at the next board meeting so that we can secure our schools. So, Ms. Green, I'm making sure that you make sure funding is there and the resources have been explored upon so that we can capture the measures. And it's good if we can get some of this information ahead of time as to what resources we do have so that we can, as a board, begin to process this in our minds as to the best course of action to taking according to that list. So I'm asking the board to please make a hard commitment to make a decision at the next board meeting. All right. Items 8A, textbook selection. Ms. Simmons, it looks like your name is on the dotted line here.
Yes,
Whoever you have a point to speak.
Mr. Davis is here and in living color this time to
Okay.
follow up with our presentation from 2 weeks ago.
All right, Mr. Davis, good to see you in person.
Good to see you again. Good afternoon, Board Chair, Dr. Reverend Mack, ladies and gentlemen of the board, and Superintendent Kennedy. It is the recommendation of the district administration that we approve the textbooks that were presented at the Committee of the Whole for health education is the early health education book, Fitness for Life for Human Genetics. And we have four science textbooks, earth science textbook, environmental science, marine science, and the astronomy textbook as presented. If you have any questions, I'll be willing to take questions.
I'd
Okay.
like to make a motion to approve the instructional materials recommended for the use in the Charleston County School District by the tech selection committees for the subjects in the attached recommendation and justification document.
Second.
All right,
Second,
move.
Thank you
Lots
so
of
much.
support.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, motion moved by Ms. Hedrick, second by Ms. Waters, Dr. French, and Ms. Coates. So it's clear across the board. Is there any questions? All right, hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote. Okay, that item passes. Item 8B is board goals and guardrails. Mr. Kennedy?
Thank you, sir. So as you're aware, the board's committee and staff have been working for the last couple of months on the board's goals, guardrails, the interim goals and interim guardrails. So we'll present to you this evening, this afternoon, that presentation, hopefully for you to vote on tonight. Next slide, please. So as a reminder, the reason why we have the student outcome governance is to focus on student outcomes, what students are, what students know and are able to do. The focus here is on these three pillars: rigorous and grade level instruction, high quality teachers and leaders, and wraparound services, all to the point of ensuring that all students are able to read on grade level by the 5th grade by the spring of 2027. Next slide, please. As a reminder, there's a handful of slides in here to talk about why we need to be doing this. This line graph shows the proficiency over time in ELA reading going back to 2006 to 2021. Those are projected numbers. And this is grades 2 through 8. The top line shows the this is by racial groups. So the top line shows the performance of white students, and you can see the performance over time on that top line. And then if you go down to the bottom two lines, you can see the same time period performance of our minority students. The green line shows the historical and current achievement levels in reading about Hispanic students. And then the bottom line, the blue line, shows the same data for African-American students. And so you can see there's been persistent, going back to 2006, going up to 2012, you can see some growth, then dropped off after 2012. And since then, the rate has been persistently level without significant academic achievement for the Hispanic and African-American students. The next slide shows over that same time period from 2006 to 2022, the average percentage of African-American 5th grade kids, and their level of reading. And you can see that 82% on average during that time period of African-American kids read below grade level, which means that those students are going into secondary schools. Next slide, please. Really unprepared to learn at the levels that they need to be able to learn in the secondary grades. This slide shows the college and career readiness rates based on the state indicators for college and career readiness. I won't go through the table, but it shows all the different types of readiness that a student can obtain: ACT, SAT scores, advanced placement, dual enrollment, etc. Down at the bottom, it says that for the 2021 graduating class, the college and career readiness rate for CCSD was 67.7%. Now, we just last week got the update for this past year, and that number has gone up to 70.2%. But that's when this data was prepared for to establish the goals, it was 67.7%. And when you break that down by racial demographics, you can see that African-American students, that rate was 41.9% or 42%. Essentially 58% of the students, African-American students, not college and career ready once they graduate. For Hispanic, that percentage is 50%. Next slide, please. And what that looks like is this. So for every six of our 10 graduating seniors, African-American, 6 of those are deemed not to be college and career ready, again, as indicated by the state indicators. And for Hispanic students, that percentage, that number is 5 out of every 10. Next slide, please. So the way that this is going to be addressed through the 3 goals that the board has established. One is on the first one is on literacy. And so since the biggest challenge or challenges are with our African-American and Hispanic students, the first goal is the percentage of Black and Hispanic fifth grade students reading on grade level will increase from 25.5% in July of 2022 to 60.7% in July 2027. It's measured by the SC Ready English Language Art assessments that are given annually. So goal 1, to increase the African American Hispanic fifth grade students reading on grade level. And then this goal has 3 interim goals, and these interim goals are measures to predict whether or not the district is on track to reach the overall goal. So the overall goal is African American and Hispanic kids reading on grade level by grade 5. And then over the next 3 years, we will track and see whether or not we're on track for that. So the first interim goal is the percentage of African American Hispanic third grade students meeting ELA growth targets will increase from X% in April of 2023 to Y% in April 2025. It's measured by iReady. Now, so the reason why we don't have the percentages in here at this point, the iReady is a new assessment that the district is using. And so the first time that we will have this data would be spring of next year. And then each of these interim goals covers a time period of either from 2 to 3 years or 1 to 3 years. So and ideally from 2022 through 2025. And when we don't have the measures until next spring, it'll be 2-year period from 2023 over to 2025. For the second interim goal, the percentage of African American and Hispanic kindergartners demonstrating low risk will increase from 47% in April of 2022 to 63.9% in April 2025, as measured by the FAST Bridge early reading. And I'm going to ask Ms. Michelle Simmons in a minute to talk about the FAST Bridge reading and what that indicates in terms of low risk for kindergarten students. Reason why I say in a minute, because I'll ask her also to talk about the third interim goal, which is the percentage of African American and Hispanic pre-K students who score in Tier 1 on the MyIGD in both rhyming and sound ID will increase from 26.9% in April of 2022 to 50.2% in April of 2025. And so before Ms. Simmons explain a little bit more on those two, the intent here is tonight is to present the goals and the interim goals, not the strategies to get there. So the last two here, some of the just for your information, some of the strategy is addressing early childhood education. So in talking with principals here in our elementary schools, they indicate that we have far too many students coming into kindergarten that are not ready to learn, and therefore we need to figure out how to get more of our pre-K students in our early education program. So we have strategies in place that we will bring to the board to indicate what those approaches are. Same thing with kids that are already in elementary schools in terms of their ability, the teacher's ability to teach them to read. We have a shortcoming in our schools of education, colleges and universities, not adequately training teachers how to teach reading. And so we have an approach to address that. So at any rate, Michelle, if you could talk about the FAST Bridge and the MyIGDs.
Yes, sir. So for both FAST Bridge in kindergarten and MyIGDs in early childhood, we thought it was important to ground a lot of this work in early learning. The best indicator, the best chance we have at closing these gaps and getting kids on grade level will be at the early grades, the primary grades. And so we want to see more kids meeting those milestones and those indicators of early learning success so that they are more apt, more able when they reach the upper elementary grades to be able to negotiate grade level standards. And so we settled on rhyming and sound identification for MyIGDs. We've noticed over time that those are two indicators that start off rather low. And there's a lot of ground to cover in one academic year. So it just made sense to us to put our time, effort, and attention on a couple of the subtests associated with MyIGDs around rhyming and sound identification as some of the work that will anchor students in long-term reading success. And so we believe that if we meet these 3 interim goals, that gets us closer and closer to that ultimate goal of closing the gaps that have persisted, as you can see in those first 2 slides, for our African-American and Hispanic scholars.
Thank you very much. Next slide, please. So goal 2, then Algebra 1, readiness and achievement. The percentage of all CCSD students enrolled in 8th grade achieving C or higher on the Algebra 1 end of course exam by the end of 8th grade will increase from 24.9% in May 2022 to 60.3% in May 2027. What you see here with the red and the strikeouts, we made this presentation to some board members this past Friday. And so what's shown here in red are the changes that took place as a result of that meeting on that presentation on Friday. So what's a note here on this particular goal is that we're measuring 2 things. We're measuring both the number of students, the percentage of students across the district in 8th grade who are ready to take Algebra 1. And so how we're doing that is including all 8th grade students in the denominator of this calculation of this metric. And then the second thing that's been measured, the number of students that are enrolled in 8th grade Algebra 1 in 8th grade achieving C or higher. So that's the achievement level. So this one goal is measuring 2 separate things for 8th grade kids. And then interim goals are here. Next slide, please. The percentage of 6th grade students that are projected to be ready for Algebra 1 will increase from 49% in April of 2022 to 65.2% in April of 2025, as measured by the MAP assessment, the measure of academic progress, which is the assessment, one of the assessments that the district uses. So the second interim goal is similar to the first one, except it's measuring 7th grade students' readiness. Now, we recognize that in order for students, for the most part, to be ready either in 6th grade or 7th grade to take Algebra 1, there's a focus on high expectation and rigorous instruction in math in the elementary schools. So this is measuring not on what's happening in middle school, but also assessing our efforts in the elementary schools with math. And then the third interim goal here for Algebra 1, the percentage of 8th grade students scoring a C or higher on the Algebra 1 benchmark will increase from X% in December of 2022, when that benchmark is given this year, to X to Y% in May 2025. And the benchmark then is it's an assessment that's given that's linked to the state standards in algebra. And so again, it's a predictor on how a student, a series of students will perform on the actual state assessment. Next slide, please. And then the third and final goal is college and career readiness. The percentage of students in the 4-year cohort who graduate college and are career ready will increase from 67.7% in August 2021 to 86.2% in August 2027, as measured by the SCE College and Career Readiness Indicators. And those indicators are shown in the table a few minutes ago, like ACT, SAT, dual enrollment, the military assessment, et cetera. Again, I mentioned a few minutes ago, that the 67.7% college and career readiness rate for CCSD graduates, that percentage was for the May, June 2021 graduating class. We just got the update for the June 2022 graduating class, and that number thankfully has gone up to 70.2%, 70.2%. So next time we present, we'll have the updated numbers. Oh yeah, the other note I want to make here, it says that this is the 4-year cohort, So that means that a set of 9th grade freshmen that start off together, the calculation includes 100% of those students at the end of the 12th grade even the ones that may have dropped out, not just the graduates. The interim goals, we have three interim goals for the College of Career Readiness. One is the percentage of all high school pupils in poverty who score a C or higher in AVID will increase from X% to Y% from May 2023 to May 2025. So AVID is a program that provides additional supports if it's rolled out correctly and implemented correctly, additional supports to typically first year college goers. And I was fortunate to be over at the Early College High School early today to see AVID in action. So I think Ms. Denny, I'm going to ask you just speak a little bit about the benefits of AVID. Since I think I indicated Friday, you were the foremost authority in expert in the district on this program. Ms. Denny.
Yes, sir. So AVID is a program designed to be delivered to first generation college goers. It can be delivered as early as elementary school. In CCSD, we currently have some middle schools who are delivering AVID, and it's primarily located in our high schools. And it's two things. One, it's a curriculum where you intentionally teach students the successful skills that they need to be a successful student. Those things might be note-taking, communication, collaboration. The other thing is it's really a framework for school in how to provide professional development for teachers, to offer highly engaging strategies for students, how to provide sort of an insight of a student that is looking at them as an AVID student, which stands for advancement via individual determination. And so providing students with the necessary skills in order to set goals, meet goals, benchmark themselves regularly. And so in my previous work at early college, we really do believe that AVID's been instrumental in providing students the necessary support that they need.
Thank you, Ms. Denny. So the second goal, interim goal is the percentage of African-American and Hispanic 10th graders who score a C or higher on the English 2 benchmark will increase from 9.3% to 38.2% during this time period. So the benchmark then again is an indicator of the potential success of a student. So the English 2 benchmark. And then the third interim goal is the percentage of 11th grade African-American Hispanic students who are college and are career ready will increase from 11.3% in May 2022. So currently, only 11.3% of these two subgroups or these two groups of students, only 11.3% of this year were college and career ready by the 11th grade. And so the intent is to increase that to 39.5% by May 2025. Now, some of the challenges with ensuring that as students get into junior year and senior year, being able to make sure that they have they're able to take the courses to become college and career ready. Sometimes it's related to inadequate planning of a student's schedule, high school schedule. And so Dr. Williams is going to form a task force that I think he already has to figure out how we start working with students in the 8th grade so that we can begin to plan out. Is that right? 8th grade? Fourth grade? Oh, 4th grade. To start planning out their high school schedules. Please, sir. Please, thank you.
So what we're looking at is increasing those work-based experiences for kiddos and for scholars, Ms. Green. And so what we want to do is maybe start in 8th grade, we have scholars completing their individual graduation plans where they start talking about the things they need to complete in reference to their career goals, aspirations. But we thought if we could look at our 4th graders and start having some conversations as far as how we, assess their interests, how we expose them to career opportunities, that we could have better outputs in the future once they get to high school. We're taking advantage of those work-based experiences. So that's what we're doing in a nutshell.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Next slide, please. So moving from the 3 goals, we're now moving to the 5 guardrails that the board hopefully will adopt. Guardrail number 1, graduate skills. The superintendent shall So just a pause here. So the goals are established the vision of the community. So the board members have gone out over a period of time, and I think had well, not think, it was 20 something community meetings, 26, to understand what the you know, what types of approaches to goals that the community wanted the board to take. And so that's how the board came up with those 3 goals, all academic, reading, algebra or math, and college and career readiness, all academic, what students know and able to do. And then the guardrails then are the values that the community has established, sort of like parameters around how we approach getting the goals accomplished. So 5 guardrails. The superintendent guardrail 1, graduate skills. The superintendent shall not allow students to graduate without the soft skills and financial literacy proficiency needed for post-secondary success. So two interim guardrails here. The percentage of juniors who have successfully earned microburst certification will increase from 5.4% in April 2022 to 35.5% in April 2025. And the microburst is a course, it's an assessment that has 10 components, and that if a student successfully completes that course, then they get a certification, and that certification in soft skills, these are all in soft skills, then can be presented to a potential employer or to a potential college, and it's a valuable certification because it indicates that the student has learned how to, from a soft skill standpoint, really engage effectively. And so we have strategies in place that's been led by Mr. Rich Gordon here to figure out how do we roll those out more broadly across the district. Currently, we have some of those microburst certification classes within the CTE realm of the district. There are some districts, I think DD district, Dorchester District 4, as an example, require, I think, 100% of their English 9th grade students to
Actually, they have a high school 101 course that they offer microburst to all students in Dorchester School District 2.
like it. And so we're looking at strategies here locally, how we can, so right here it says 35.5%, that's over a 3-year period. So when we look at the process, an interim measure versus the 5-year, but we will be expanding this throughout the district. And then the second interim guardrail, the percentage of high school students who successfully complete a financial literacy course with a CR higher prior to graduation will increase from 5% in May 2022 to 35.3% in May 2025. So there's a couple things here. We do have within the district, across the district, some limited financial literacy instructions that's taking place. And the second point is that the state is developing, well, not developing, there's a state mandate that all students across South Carolina at some point in high school receive a literacy course. That course, the state is developing the standards for that course now. And so we don't have an implementation date, but that'll be a part of our strategies in terms of making sure that all of our kids graduate financially literate. Guardrail 2, social emotional learning. The superintendent shall not allow students to go without social emotional learning. 3 guardrails here. The percentage of elementary schools achieving an average of 70% or higher on the SAM TFI will increase by 15% from the baseline of X in May next year to Y% in May 2027. So just a heads up, Ms. Huggins, I'll ask you to join in here in a minute to talk about these 3 interim guardrails. But the SAM and the TFI relate to the multi-tier system of support that's been in place in the district for some time. The SAM is more of a self-assessment. So we're not going to already working on creating a tool that, in addition to the self-assessment, we have a way to go in and do a fidelity check. That's what the F stands for in the TFI. So we have some outside assessment of how effective the MTSS program is being implemented in our schools. And the operationalizing it's a technical term as part of this this programming. And so the operationalizing represents a certain level And I think there's like 5 levels, so from low to high in the operationalized, and I think it's the 4th level from the top, at the top. Same thing. So that's the elementary school. Same thing with the middle schools, and then the last one here, the percentage of high schools achieving an average of. I'm sorry. This is all the same tool and same measure. One at the elementary school, one at the middle school, and one at the high school. So Ms. Huggins.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. And thank you, board members. We've spent a lot of time around these guardrails and goals, talking about what will make the most significant impact in our system. And we collectively believe on the learning services side of the house, which includes, as you know, both the chief academic office and the chief of schools office, that MTSS is one of the key systems that is necessary to ensure student success, both for universal support, but also for tier 2 and tier 3 support, which helps us to identify students who have the most needs, both academically and behaviorally, and provide to them the support that they need. So the self-assessment measure, the SAM, and the tiered fidelity inventory, the TFI, has been used in our system for the last few years to allow teams to self-assess their progress with PBIS, which is our system for behavioral support, and with MTSS. What we're doing, as Mr. Kennedy stated, though, is working on a collective tool that we can use to help teams progress monitor their implementation inside of the school and to provide them with the support that they need. Lisa Allison in our Department of School Support is working on that now with other key members of her team to ensure that we have the best system in place to begin monitoring these processes as early as second semester.
Thank you, Ms. Huggins. Next slide, please, which is the 3rd guardrail, stakeholder engagement. The superintendent shall not present major initiatives to the board without engaging schools. That includes parents, guardians, students, and staff, without engaging schools, district, and community stakeholders who are most impacted by the initiative and our decision. Next slide. So there are 3 interim guardrails here. One, the percentage of secondary schools that have a representative student advisory team or group holding 3 or more meetings per year will grow from less than 5% in May 2022 to 75% by May 2025. And feedback from those groups will be provided to the district via the superintendent's cabinet. So this is the staff's approach to ensure that we have a structure in place that allows for student voice. Number 2, the number of public-facing stakeholder interactions to solicit feedback on district initiatives and our decisions, and those will be major decisions and initiatives, will increase from 1 per year in May 2022 to 4 per year in May 2025. And then the 3rd interim guardrail, the number of times the superintendent will solicit feedback from the board of trustees to identify major decisions to guide quarterly roundtables will increase from 0 times in 2022 to 4 times per year in by May 2025. And those roundtables are the superintendent's roundtable. They include principal roundtables, which I engage and my staff engage with principals with their interaction between them and us in terms of what concerns are and what initiatives might be coming down the pike. The teachers roundtable, there's the so those 2 already exist. We're going to reestablish the business roundtable looking outwardly. We will reestablish the faith-based roundtable. I think that the first meeting has been set up for that already. And then there's, of course, the student roundtable and the literacy. So reestablishing the literacy time roundtable associated with our reading goals. And guardrail 4, treatment and expectation of students. The superintendent shall not allow disparate treatment nor low expectations for any students. In the 2 guardrails, we had 1 guardrail that we presented Friday, and based on discussion with board members, we've added a 2nd one. So the first one, the percentage of teachers rated proficient or higher on the expectations domain of the classroom walkthrough tool will increase from X% in May 2023 to Y% in May 2025. Now, this walkthrough tool is something that's under development right now, and it's a strategy to allow for ensure that as we move down this path of these goals and guardrails, that when we can assess whether or not the rigorous instruction is being afforded to all of our students in all of our classrooms versus not being afforded. So Ms. Huggins, I'm gonna ask you to come in one more time here in a second. And the second goal, interim guardrail, rather, the percentage of school and district instructional teams that will participate in 4 or more learning walks designed to develop a common expectation of the learning environment will increase from X% to Y%. And again, the reason why we don't have these measures in for either of these interim guardrails on these two, because these tools are being developed right now for implementation later this school year. So Ms. Huggins, will you elaborate a little bit on these two, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. We want to ensure that day to day in our classrooms, we're seeing consistent measures across the district and implementation of high expectations for all students. And we believe that this walkthrough tool will allow our principals and our coaches to be able to do so, and our district staff to be able to give feedback to teachers in real time. And the tool that we're looking to house this on is Whetstone, which allows teachers to exchange with us back and forth in a coaching-like way. We actually will talk to the teacher roundtable about it tomorrow. We've reached it a bit with the teacher forum. But key to this process is what Mr. Kennedy referred to as inter-rater reliability walkthroughs, which will allow groups of educators, leaders across the district, and staff to walk together in classrooms to look at classroom teaching performance, to compare their ratings of that, and to have a robust conversation about what high expectations look like, regardless of the student group, whether students be in a classroom in North Charleston, out at Edisto, or in Mount Pleasant. And that in and of itself will allow us to ensure that we are systemic and systematic in how we identify high expectations and what that looks like and sounds like in classrooms. Based on feedback from several of you on Thursday, we added, as you see, that bottom piece, and housed also on that Whetstone platform, in addition to this general walkthrough tool, will be EL and bridges and or illustrative math tools that also helps us ensure consistency across the district in regards to our implementation of the core. Again, that was feedback from some of you all that we took to heart and added here.
Thank you. Next slide, please. The last guardrail is climate. The superintendent shall not allow a negative or unsupportive staff culture. And so this is in 2 categories, non-teaching and teaching. The first interim guardrail, the district's percentage of non-teaching school-based staff that respond favorably regarding their perspectives of overall social and learning climate of the school as measured by the school climate topic on the panorama survey will increase from 62% in April 2022 to 66% in May 2025. May 2025. And a similar guardrail for the teaching staff in each school. Now, we did have a conversation with the board last week about whether the panorama survey would be the appropriate survey. So initially, we will use the panorama survey and take a look at other options as we move down the path of using these guardrails. So that concludes the 5 guardrails. The last slide here. Next step, working with the consultants with Council of Great City Schools in the student outcome governance framework. The next part of this process is develop progress monitoring protocols, whereby staff will interact with the school board on how to monitor. So that's a formal way to do that monitoring process that's laid out in this in the governance student outcome governance framework. And essentially, it has 3 fundamental concerns. Does the reality when we present data to the board around these guardrails and around the goals, does that reality match the vision of what the district, what the school board has laid out? Is there growth, is there growth towards that vision? And then are there strategies and plans sufficient to make sure that that growth takes place? And so that is, again, is a formal process that's being developed now that includes a monitoring calendar. And so it'll be very clear and transparent to all when those monitoring meetings would take place. Questions?
Okay, you've heard a report coming from the superintendent in reference to board goals and guardrails. Are there any questions?
I have a question.
All right, Mr. Waters.
Well, a couple of questions, actually. Pertaining to guardrails 4 and 5. So the learning walk piece, is there going to be a concrete deliverable or reflection or something that indicates what is occurring in classrooms, and so that we can get some data, because it just feels very subjective and would be very difficult to determine whether anything is changing?
Yeah, so I'll ask Anita to jump in here in a second, but the way I've seen the Whetstone, the tool that Anita referred to operate, it's very, in terms of data, the data are objective. So Anita, can you address that further?
I'm happy to. Thanks for the question, Mrs. Waters. Yes, as you know, teacher observations always lend themselves to some subjectivity, unfortunately. So the scientific part of that is doing the interarray reliability walkthroughs, to which Mr. Kennedy and I referred earlier. You have to norm that as much as you can. And so we will, with teams across the district, as we've done in the past in CCSD, work with administrators and assistant, not only principals, but also assistant principals, to ensure that we have a common language, not only about what high expectations sounds like, but what it looks like in practice. And we'll focus on that instruction in that environmental domain so that we're able to capture the most important pieces of what's going on in classrooms. Then what we'll do is, through that Whetstone platform, is be able to generate quantitative feedback and data for the board to progress monitor along the way to see where teachers are in the district. And we'll use that data then to determine what sorts of professional development and other supports districts, communities need through our chief of schools office. Again, those observations is something that the state, it's something that the nation has battled with in regards to how to make them as objective as possible. And what we see in regards to best practice is that we provide a rubric, and then you have qualifying numbers from 4, 3, 2, 1, or some sort of indicators that breaks that down in writing so that everyone understands, everyone is trained, and then you calibrate in those walkthroughs.
Thank you. So as a follow-up, just pertaining to the same guardrail, is that there are many ways. So that's the high expectations piece, but in terms of the disparate treatment of students ways, that shows up in a number of ways. It's not always just through what you can see in a classroom observation. And certainly those are moments when folks typically put on their best, performances. And so the concern that I have on the disparate treatment piece is, are you monitoring anything else in the district, like behavioral, where I'm going, Dr. Coakley, there we go, referrals. I'm like, the word is escaping me, but yes. Are you monitoring anything else to look at the disparity in treatment among students?
So the multi-tier system of support, which has been a part of the district's work for a number of years now, we have a recognition that there have been some implementation challenges where some of those some of the implementation has not been done with fidelity. And so a part of this work under the guardrail, the significant part of work under the guardrail, is to address that issue. And so that we can make sure that we identify specifically by student what a student's needs are, so that whether it's tier 1 under the MTSS or more interventionists under tier 2 and under tier 3. That's one of the reasons why I went over to Early College High School today to see how Abbott approaches that. And so in conjunction with the MTSS, that we're going to use that fidelity inventory tool to develop that more critically. And then also with an expansion of the Abbott outside of Early College High School into other grades. We talked about, in fact, even starting that in some of our middle schools. So yes, all those tools and strategies have not been, they're in the early stages of development, but to your point, we have to make sure that it's not all subjective, that we have a real way to make sure that that students are being supported.
Mhm. So in the future, maybe we could add some interim goals under these guardrails to make sure we're monitoring fuller.
Yeah, so I have not yet stepped into the monitoring process yet. But as we get into that process with the Council of State Schools, I'll make sure we focus on how we monitor to make sure that we have this adequate implementation.
Well, I guess what I'm more so saying is if in guardrail 4, we're only looking at the classroom walkthrough tool,
Mhm.
but there's all these other pieces like disciplinary referrals, et cetera, but they're not stated here. What is there to require that it comes before the board for us to monitor?
So you're asking about the sort of like quantitative
Right,
metrics
right.
around.
So adding another measure here, potentially.
So, Mr. Kennedy, might I jump in here? Because I know, I believe I know where Ms. Waters is going with this, and I appreciate the thought behind it. It might be that I see that Cindy, neither Cindy nor Kim from the council is on this call today, but it might be that the board, Reverend Mack, wants to add some clarity around what I heard her say on Thursday's call. And I hate to speak for her, but it might be that the board might want to add, if it's the will of the majority of the board, some clarity around that guardrail. If it's disparate treatment in regards to academics and behavior, then that might be a friendly amendment, Mrs. Waters, to the guardrail from the board. And then staff might go back and determine if there are measures that we might include as interim guardrails to focus on. I think where you're going with this, Ms. Waters, is the disproportionality of discipline data between groups of students. So again, if it's the will of the board, there might want to be some specificity added to that guardrail, which could then help staff go back and revisit as needed.
Yeah, and I would love to take the conversation offline because I think there's some other nuances too that I'm not sure if they came up in Thursday, but they came up before. I don't want to belabor the point. I'll ask for Lauren and I capture that. So thank you.
Absolutely. I hope that's helpful because I hear what you're saying, and we focused on this specific guardrail. We focused most of our time and energy on the academics and making sure students had access to quality education across the system, and that what we saw from teachers and students in the classroom and administrators and monitoring that was equal, regardless of your zip code, regardless of where you are, right? But like Mr. Kennedy said, we did think more about student behavior and some of the other guardrails, but if it's the will of the majority of the board, some specificity in that guardrail might help us create another interim guardrail that addresses that.
Thank you. And actually, Reverend Mack, that was all pertaining to the same question. I do have a second question if no one else has one.
Yeah, Mr. Aubrey did have a question.
Okay,
But
and I'll go after.
yeah, go ahead.
My last one might be a little easier. For the climate guardrail, the progress here moving, 4 percentage points, 5 percentage points over that amount of time, 3 years, looks pretty low to me. And I think climate is incredibly important. And so I'm wondering why such a low goal or just a low increase on that guardrail.
Buffy, were you involved in that one?
It's my understanding when the conversation occurred that they were looking at the 2027 year and looking at a 10 percentage point increase. When that changed on Friday, I think it was, we simply looked at that end of 72%, I think, on that goal. I don't have it in front of me, I'm sorry. And just basically took the middle. That's basically how that occurred, if that makes sense.
So the original goal was a 10% increase to 72%, but that was we had in error had laid that out over a 5-year period versus the interim requirement of a 3-year set of goals.
That's correct. It was 2027, I think it was.
I think it's just a concern in general that when you set an audacious goal. I realize it has to be realistic, but this is climate. It's literally just how someone's doing in the system. Then it encourages you to actually put the measures in place to reach that. But if you've only got to move 4 percentage points, I mean, what are you really doing? That could be a matter of, attrition and, something happening and there's a number of new teachers in the district and they're just happy to be here. And they, that we just don't, I don't know that we will really know that we've made a difference with this very small incremental change.
I agree.
Ms. Dar,
I want to, okay.
Mr. Harvey, then Dr. Finch.
So I would agree with that. I think maybe some of y'all who worked on that ad hoc could advise us on what that ought to be. My question is, okay, so I know, let's say we vote to approve these today. I mean, is there anything that prevents us from bringing back in November, like if we talk about it today and agree, some additional interim guardrails or whatever we call them underneath interim guardrails, additional interim guardrails? Or I know the goals are the goals and we can't change those, but can we add any other interim measures?
Well, so like Ms. Huggins indicated that according to the counselors, Council of Great City Schools counselors, that the guardrails and the goals are owned by the school board, and that the interim measures are owned by the superintendent and his staff, and that if there's changes that need to take place, they need to be articulated through the board, through the goals and the motions there,
Right.
So we can react to those changes, but there have to be clarity. And this is again coming from the process that the council uses. Has to be clarity from the board through those goals and guardrails. And then we will adjust accordingly.
Dr. French.
So I wanted to follow up on this with Ms. Waters said, I thought that when you were changing the dates on guardrail 5, that originally the date was a typo and that the percentage change was actually 2025, because that's what you had for all of your other interim guardrails and goals. So I am disappointed as well that this change is so small. It doesn't feel like a stretch, and it almost feels like something that could fall within the margin of error or something that's not as objective as other measurements. So I hope they'll look at that again, but as you say, you own those, but one of the questions that I had going back to the goals is that you had a couple of benchmarks that you mentioned, the algebra benchmark and the English benchmark. Are those are not dependent on the student being enrolled in algebra or the specific English class, correct? Those are benchmarks that every student would take?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. I'm sorry, Mr. Kennedy.
Go ahead, Anita.
No,
Go ahead.
ma'am. Please let Ms. Roberts respond.
Could you tell me which of the goals you're talking about? Because
All right,
they're,
let's look at goal 2.
Okay.
Algebra 1 readiness. And I'm looking at interim goal 2.3. The percentage of 8th grade students scoring a C or higher on the Algebra 1 benchmark will increase, and we don't have the percentages yet. So my understanding is you're developing a benchmark in what? Okay.
the benchmarks have been created, and those are students who would be enrolled in the Algebra 1 course. Those would be the only students who would actually take an Algebra 1 benchmark, because the purpose of that assessment is to certainly measure what the student is learning in class so that we can make sure that they're on track for that end of course assessment at the end of the year.
So my concern with this is that this isn't going to be predictive of whether 8th grade students have taken and achieved a C by the end of 8th grade, because you're not capturing any students who took Algebra 1 before 8th grade. So you're saying that you'll only apply this benchmark to students who are enrolled during the 8th grade. And what we need to know is whether or not we're getting more and more of our students ready. So I would rather see it, and honestly, I'd rather relate more closely to the overall goal, which is that you want to look at how this percentage of benchmark measures relates to the entire 8th grade student population, instead of just looking at students who are taking Algebra 1.
That's what your 6th grade and your 7th. is doing.
6th grade and 7th grade, those goals are telling us whether or not they're ready to take algebra. The third one is apparently only for students who are taking algebra that year. So that's different.
Dr. French, you have a question for Ms. Rowe?
Yeah, I'm asking why you're doing it this way instead of including all students who have taken algebra or including all students in 8th grade.
We couldn't do for all students in 8th grade because all students in 8th grade would not be taking the Algebra 1 benchmark because they aren't all being exposed to that same content. We do have a benchmark for illustrative math, which is the grade level content for or grade level curriculum for that, for 8th grade, also 7th and 6th. The other thought here, any 7th grade students who are enrolled in Algebra 1 would also be taking that particular benchmark. Any 7th or 8th grade students this year who are enrolled in the course would be taking it. But there would be no way to, I'm not sure I understand why we would provide that measure for all students, I guess.
Ms. Roberts.
The point of the goal is to address all students, not just students who are taking Algebra 1 at any point.
Dr. French, I appreciate your question. Ms. Roberts, I appreciate you stepping in. If you don't mind, I might try to interject. I don't know if I can help. Dr. French, I certainly understand where you're coming from. The point of this goal is both readiness and achievement, but the goal is for all students, for us to increase the number of all students by the end of grade eight scoring a C or higher. So we selected a goal for 6th and 7th grade to ensure students are ready for 8th grade. But once they're enrolled in 8th grade in Algebra 1, and hopefully they'll be enrolled in 7th, but once they're enrolled in 8th grade, the goal also has part of it to get them to a C or higher. So we're going to monitor that in the 8th grade because at the point they're in the 8th grade, we have to monitor how well they are progressing towards achievement of a C because that's the goal. Does that help offer any explanation? Again, 6th and 7th grade get more and more kids ready, but once you get in 8th grade and you're in the course, we've got to make sure you're progressing and meeting the standards, mastering the standards to make a C or better.
Right, but my question is, how is that predictive for the overall goal?
Good.
That's where I see the disconnect.
Gotcha. So along the way, those benchmarks are set up along the way to tell us whether students have mastered the content along the way. So if Anita takes the first benchmark, let's say in October, because typically in middle schools, Dr. French, the algebra, I'm sure you already know this, but just in case, in middle school, the algebra course is typically taught as on a year-long versus a block. Some high schools do it as a skinny, which means year-long, but the benchmark monitors progress along the way to tell whether Anita has mastered the concepts related to the curricula at that point. So the student at the first benchmark, if we see that Anita has a problem, oh gosh, I'm a recovering English teacher, so I'm going to grab in the dark.
We did talk about this within the strategies.
Yes, ma'am. If Anita has problems along the way mastering certain topics, I can't even A squared plus B squared is C squared. I mean, if Anita hasn't mastered these things, so we need to determine what to do. Do we need to go back and reteach? Does Anita need one-on-ones? So that helps us track the progress of students, and it predicts. It is a very close. I don't know the scale, Mrs. Roberts, but those benchmarks are a solid predictor of how students will perform on the EOC.
All right, thank you, Ms. Huggins. Thank you, Dr. French.
I just want to remind everyone that the goal is the percentage of all 8th grade students, because that's what that's why I feel this disconnect, and it's telling me that the percentage of students taking Algebra 1 or making a C is going to look a lot higher than the number of eighth graders total.
But
that
we
are
will,
making a
we
C.
will, we will see that, Dr. French, every year in the main goal itself. So that measures all students.
And if this,
But
All
it's
right.
the goal, can I-
Mhm.
the goal is the percentage of all CCSD students enrolled in eighth grade achieving C or higher on the Algebra 1 end of course exam by the end of eighth grade will increase from 24, blah, blah, blah. You're only taking the Algebra 1 end of course exam if you're in Algebra 1.
Yes.
So it's not, if I
I know, so that
Yes.
that's only 24% of our students have made that.
Right,
Because
so
a
we're
lot of them don't
increasing-
take it.
Right, but so it's not all eighth grade, we're gonna, hopefully with the readiness and the other parts of the
Increase.
interim goal, we'll be getting the kids ready and more kids will be taking it. But the goal is for the kids in eighth grade taking that end of course exam, so they're
No,
taking.
No, the
out-
goal is for,
Well, they're having to address two things, an
Yeah.
access issue and a readiness
Right.
issue.
so that,
Well,
that's why the denominator is all of the eighth grade students, not just the eighth grade students who are taking Algebra 1.
But
Fr-
the only.
from the interim benchmarks at 6th, 7th.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the interim, I'm just talking about the goal.
I know, but the interim goals accomplish what we've set forth in the goal, in the algebra goal.
I'll just, yeah, I'm not gonna argue that anymore. I just want to make sure Kate.
Okay,
But
well, Dr.
does-
French, you can follow up with Ms.
What this
Roberts or Ms. Huggins.
I'm
uh,
happy to talk to you, Dr.
Sarah.
French, offline about it. I think Ms. Herderick is, I think what Ms. Herderick stated is, you know, in the goals, the prior goals regarding math in the 6th and 7th, that's about getting more kids, all kids, hopefully ready for 8th. But let's talk about it offline and we may be able to bring back some sort of adjustment to the board.
Okay, is there a motion for item 8B?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the goals and the guardrails with additional edits to guardrail 4 and guardrail 5 to be provided to the board at the committee of the whole on November 7th.
Second.
Second?
All right.
Oh,
move-
okay, 7th.
Second.
Okay.
I'm second.
I'm like,
Agreeing, second.
thank you.
Okay,
November
I was
7th.
like, oh.
moved by
November
Ms.
7th.
Hederick, second by Ms. Darby. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote.
Oh, while she's capturing that, I just had one additional thing to add on the climate piece. We did discuss in the Thursday's meeting utilizing groups. And I'm saying this because I just know of this group more, like Jody Stallings from the Charleston Teacher Alliance, to really capture that we're improving from from a climate perspective. So I'd love to still, I know that you own the interim guardrails, but still consider that option as we're looking to improve climate.
And we did, yes, I guess on Friday, we did have some, conversations on that. And so as I indicated in the presentation, we will be taking a look at our approach to surveys.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I ask everyone to please cast their vote. Okay, that motion passes. Item 8C is the school report card rating. Mr. Kennedy.
So the South Carolina report card rating for 2022 came out recently. This is a high level overview of the outcomes for CCSD. Next slide, please. And some highlights here. The first bullet shows that the percentage of excellent, good, and average ratings, schools that is increased from 69.7% in 2019. We didn't have the ratings in 2020 and 2021 because of COVID to 76.4% in 2022. Of particular note on the, in the bullets up here, it's the last bullet. No ratings of unsatisfactory in any CCSD middle schools in 2022. Down at the bottom in the table, you can see the it's stratified by the percentages around excellent, good, average. Again, the increase on those three from 69.7% to 76.4%. Excellent. At 25% of our schools were rated excellent. We had an increase on the good from 16 to 18 schools. Average went from 24 to 28, and below average dropped to 10, from 24 to 10, and unsatisfactory. We did have an increase there from 3-day schools and unsatisfactory. Next slide. This table compares CCSD in the blue-green to the state averages under ELA, mathematics, English, and Algebra 1. And it also does a comparison of other school districts within the Low Country. And in most cases, in both at state level and across the comparisons on the Low Country school districts, we fared favorable. And the next slide shows that a little bit more detail. Achievement, academic achievement, CCSD 53.3% and SC Ready versus the South Carolina 46.6%. And you can see the other percentages in math, English 1 and Algebra 1. The block over to the right says opportunities, student progress. There's a measure of it's a growth measure comparing CCSD to South Carolina. And so you can see for that includes both English and mathematics. For CCSD, that growth measure for our students was from 4th grade through 8th grade. And it shows a 49.1% growth measure versus the state at 51.1%. So while our achievement level, the school district CCSD's achievement level currently is higher than the state's achievement level, the state average is, the growth measure is higher than CCSD, which indicates that we do have work to do to make sure that we accelerate our growth, and the strategies that we are putting in place and designing will address both achievement and growth, so that we can make sure that as we progress, we're able to make sure that our kids grow. The graduation rate, the third major bullet there, CCSD 84.6% versus the state average of 83.8%. And then, as I indicated in the last presentation, the college and career readiness moved from 67.7% to 70.2%. CCSD outperformed. Next slide, please. This shows the district's ranking versus the state, and the rankings in the Tri-County area, in these three areas here. Academic achievement for South Carolina ELA, and math, we were number 1, number 2 on English 1 in the course examination, and number 3 on Algebra 1 in the course examination. The next 3 slides shows the performance in a graphical point. These are elementary schools. The blue are the excellent rated schools. The green are the average, good. And then the yellow is average. The orange is below average, and red is unsatisfactory. So we had 6 elementary schools in that category, unsatisfactory. As I indicated a few minutes ago, here in the middle school, next one, please, next slide. This is the graph for the middle schools. You see no red because, as I indicated, we have no unsatisfactory middle schools for 2022. And the last one for high schools, we did have some challenges at the high school level. So you can see the 5 schools to the right there that were rated unsatisfactory. And that concludes the brief update on the SC Ready for 2022. What questions do you have?
All right, you've heard a report coming from the superintendent on the SC report card. Are there any questions? All right, hearing none, we go to item 9A.
Mr. Chairman, unless somebody has any questions, I move to approve the reallocation of funds as shown on the attached resolution.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Green, second by Ms. Darby. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote. Ms. Coates, how do you vote?
She may have dropped off.
All right, she's dropped off. That item passes. Item 9B.
Mr. Chairman, I motion to approve the reallocation of funds as shown on the attached resolution.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Green, second by Ms. Darby. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote. That item passes. Item 9C.
Chairman, I move to approve the reallocation of funds as shown on the attached resolution.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Green, second by Ms. Darby. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote. That item passes. Item 9D.
Move to approve the reallocations as shown on the attached resolution.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Green, second by Ms. Darby. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote. Okay, that item passes. Item 9E.
Mr. Chairman, I motion to approve the reallocation of funds as shown on the attached resolution.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Green, second by Ms. Darby. Are there any questions?
I promise I didn't make all these up.
Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote. That motion passes. Item 9F.
Technology replacement. Mr. Chair, I move to approve the attached technology replacements and upgrade for the 6-year plan 2023 through 2028.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Green, second by Ms. Darby. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote. Okay, that motion passes. Item 9G.
Mr. Chairman, this is relating to phase 5, and I move to approve borrowing new long-term debt of 22 million to add to the existing 77.5 million for a total of 99.5 million as shown in the attached resolution.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Green, second by Ms. Darby. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote. That item passes. Item 9H is the Citizen Oversight Steering Committee.
I move to approve the membership recommendations from staff and Audit and Finance Committee.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Green, second by Ms. Darby. Are there any questions?
I have a question.
Dr. French?
If I wasn't clear whether or not the resumes or background of the nominees were ever reviewed, because it's not in our packet and I didn't.
The Audit and Finance Committee did review them, and most of these are recurring members. Is that right, Jeff?
Two of them are.
Two of them are.
Two of them are from the previous phase.
Okay, Jeff, did we get clarity on the charter as far as the chair appointment?
Yeah, yes, sir. I reviewed that with Ms. Williams, CFO, and the Audit and Finance Committee does not require the chair to be the chair of this committee to be on the Audit and Finance Committee, but our charter was a carryover from the last charter and did say that. So I think we would abide by the Audit and Finance charter on this one. In which case you would assign the representative as the chair of this committee.
From the
Pardon me?
listing committee, from the listing names here?
Correct. And we can work with you all following this meeting, provide your recommendation so that you can present that at the next meeting.
Yep. All right.
Yes, sir.
Any further questions? All right. Please cast your vote. That item passes. Item 9I.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve appointing Mr. Kent Griffin, who is currently on the Audit and Finance Committee, and an incredible member of that committee. He has agreed to serve another term through the fall of 2024. Second.
Okay, moved by Ms. Green, second by Ms. Hedrick. Are there any questions? Hearing none, yes, please cast your vote. Okay, that item passes. Item 9J.
Mr. Chairman, we are requesting I move that we will commit fund balance for ERSA continuity and stabilization. We anticipate having about $10 million in surplus, and we would like to have that put in a special category for this.
Second.
Purpose.
Okay, moved by Ms. Green, second by Dr. French. Are there any questions? Hearing none, Wes, please cast your vote. Can we have some? Who's gonna do? All right, that item passes. Item 9K is for information. However, our CFO is going to speak to that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Board. This item is an update for our disparity study. As of right now, since we last engaged, we had a community forum which the consultants, Miller 3, have, they're in the process and have consolidated the information from that forum. Our final report will not be present and ready until October 31st. What's before you today is just an update. It will go back to audit and finance before coming to the board with the final report and status of the disparity study. Any questions, please?
Okay. Anyone have any questions in reference to that process and completion of this update? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item 9L is the SWMB report for information. Did anyone have any questions? It's included in your packet. All right, item 9M is the capital projects report. Is there any questions? Hearing none. Item 10A, that's policy JKA.
I move to approve the attached changes to policy JKA for first reading.
Second.
Moved by Dr. French, second by Ms. Hedrick and Ms. Darby. Are there any questions? Hearing none, rest, please cast your vote. Ms. Green?
Oh.
That item passes. I do want to acknowledge one condolence that I did not acknowledge at the beginning of our meeting. I know everyone is trying to pack up and ready to go, but just give me a few more minutes here. So board members and members of the audience, I sadly must announce the passing of one of our staff members today. Jeff Phipps, the athletic director at West Ashley High School, passed away earlier this month. He was a beloved member of the Wildcat faculty and community. He'll be greatly missed by all. In our hands, O Lord, we humbly entrust our brothers and sisters, and in this life, you embrace them with your tender love. Deliver them now from every evil and bid them eternal rest. The order has passed away. Welcome them now into paradise, where there will be no sorrow, no weeping or pain, but fullness of peace and joy with your Son and the Holy Spirit forever and ever. Amen. All right, let me come back out of my pastoring mode here. All right, so board members, you do have 2 more meetings. And that is on November 7th.
Just for clarification on
Hang on 1 second.
that.
2 more meetings, that is on the books, November 7th, which is the committee of the whole, and November 14th, which will be the next board meeting. Yes, question.
Our published schedule indicates a special call meeting on November the 7th after the committee of the whole. Are we planning to have that meeting or not?
So presently, I may have been a placeholder of some sort in the event that we may need to do something that require emergency of some sort. So, but that was just a placeholder for acknowledgement that if that comes up, it's there.
So we will call an ad hoc committee to work with the superintendent on guardrail 4 and 5.
Okay.
So we'll work with Sydney and the council that those edits will be presented at the committee of the whole. So let's hold that in
Well,
place.
that was the purpose of that being placed for transparency.
Thank
Just
you. Yep,
Something of that nature will occur.
thank you.
All right, there being no more further business, I entertain a motion for adjournment. This meeting is now officially adjourned.